Hello and welcome to CXO Bytes, a podcast brought to you by the Green Software Foundation and dedicated to supporting chiefs of information, technology, sustainability, and AI as they aim to shape a sustainable future through green software. We will uncover the strategies and a big green move that's helped drive results for business and for the planet. I am your host, Sanjay Podder. Hello, welcome to another episode of CXO Bytes, where we get unique perspective from the CXOs on sustainable software development. Today, as our guest, we have May Yap, Senior Vice President and CIO of Jabil. Jabil is a global leader in manufacturing and supply chain, and they have been in use very recently on Newsweek's one of America's most responsible company. I would love to hear more from May about her priorities from a sustainability perspective, how she sees technology playing a role here, as well as some of the big challenges we see and how Jabil is leading the charge. May, welcome to this episode of CXO Bytes and welcome to the show. We are very keen to know more about the exciting work you are doing in Jabil and also learn more about Jabil.
Thank you. Thanks, Sanjay. Hi, everybody. Good day to you. So I'm May. I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Jabil. I also lead digital transformation for the company. So my focus really spans across looking at factory optimization for the company, looking at how we can actually deploy advanced technologies such as AI and machine learning into the organization, driving digital transformation, looking at cybersecurity. And last but not least, very, very important for me is actually making sure that we've put a focus on sustainability, right? So for folks who are not familiar with Jabil, we are a US manufacturing company headquartered in Florida. So we are celebrating close to 60 years of service within the industry. We are second largest manufacturing solution provider in the world, right? So, and for Jabil, we operate out from 35 different countries, 100 different locations. We have about 140,000 to 160,000 employees. We are at a 28 billion company. Thank you.
So, May, my first question.
Yep.
As CIO of Jabil, you are in the forefront of integrating technology with sustainability. How do you see the intersection of green IT and responsible AI reshaping the manufacturing and supply chain sectors in the future?
Yeah, so Sanjay, I think that's a great question, right? Because I think you're asking the toughest question on green IT, but yet responsible AI, right? So maybe let's start with green IT first. So a quick joke, right? So how Sanjay and I actually get to know each other is I actually went to him and said, hey, Sanjay, what are the things that we need to be doing better on green IT? So after talking to him a few rounds, I think that gave me a lot of inspiration as to how and what we need to be doing. So in specific, from Jabil IT perspective, we work on a few things in terms of green IT, right? So the first thing that we started off with is making sure that we implement energy efficiency program where we actually look at, sourcing the data center, looking at cloud solution so that, on our side, we can actually reduce the carbon footprint. So I think that's super important. The other thing is really sustainable hardware, right? So we actually take it one step further and actually, sign on a contract with another provider to actually do desktop as a service. So literally, we do not own any desktop, right? So and even for the desktop that we loan, we wanted the vendor to make sure that they need to be sustainable model. It needs to be eco-friendly, and they need to actually oblige to eco-friendly material and things like that. So that are the two things. And then third thing, green coding. I think this is also very big on Sanjay's agenda. So through a lot of discussion, right? So we also adopted green coding to make sure that we give guidance on what's the right way to code, right? Well, which right way can we code so that it actually consumes lesser energy? So I think that's helpful. On top of that, we also adopt from the IT perspective, low code, no code platform, right? So in a lot of way, we encourage people to don't code, drag and drop, or use more energy efficient way of coding. So that's what we are doing from the IT world, right? So, but more importantly, when we actually look at responsible AI, and responsible AI actually means a lot, right? We are talking about how do we actually use responsible AI in the practice of developing, deploying, and managing the AI system that it becomes ethical, transparent, and accountable. So in Jabil, like what I mentioned, one of the big focus that I look at is really on AI and machine adoption throughout the company and also in the factory. So while we actually have AI being deployed, what are the things that I need to do in order to actually make sure that I comply with the responsible AI responsibility, right? So for us, we did a few things, right? So from change management perspective, we actually set up what we call the Data and AI Council that actually encompass key leaders from every functions within the organization. So they will send around representative and sit in my council. So we will educate them on what does responsible AI mean, right? So what are the policy that we need to implement when we talk about responsible AI? What is fairness in AI system mean? How do we ensure reliability and safety of AI? How do we ensure that data is transparent? How do we ensure that data becomes fair, right? That means data become findable, adaptable, interoperable, and reusable. And then how do we ensure privacy and security? So there's a whole policy that we actually derive and continuous education on people. Definitely, I'll not claim that we are there yet. We are still on the initial learning ground to do that, right? So once we have the green IT, guidelines and responsible AI guidelines, I think that give a lot more clearance and clarity for us in the manufacturing world and also the supply chain world.
Wonderful. May Jabil was recently recognized in Newsweek's America's Most Responsible Companies 2025. How has this recognition validated your efforts in sustainability? And what specific initiatives in green manufacturing and supply chain contributed to this achievement?
Yeah, so we are really, really proud that Newsweek actually gave us the validation, right? So this validation to Jabil is actually our ongoing commitment to sustainability and responsible business practices. So it highlights the effectiveness of our comprehensive, what we call the ESG strategy, right? Really focusing on not just environmental, but really social and our governance strategy. So we're really, really proud about that, right? So when you ask me what are the green manufacturing initiative, there's actually quite a lot of things that we're doing within the manufacturing world, right? So energy efficiency. So we actually make sure that the energy efficient technology are actually put in place in our manufacturing processes, in our ecosystem, so that it actually reduce energy consumption, it actually reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And then we also talk about circular economy in our whole manufacturing ecosystem, right? So we have a robust program to refurbish, recycle, and reuse materials, parts, and devices so that it actually can minimize waste and it promotes sustainability. So that's very big for us. And renewable energy, right? So in many of our shop floor, in many of our sites across the world, we are transitioning to renewable energy sources significantly, right? So that will reduce our commitment from scope 1 to scope 2 and scope 2 emission. So that's on the manufacturing ecosystem side. So on sustainable supply chain side, so a few of the initiatives that the team has actually undertaken is first, we talk about green logistics, right? Optimizing logistics to reduce fuel consumption and emission. So we do actually put in AI programs to actually help the supply chain team actually plan out what is the lowest landed cost, right? So the less, logistic that's actually involved, the better it will be. And it becomes more friendly, sustainable and friendly, right? And then we also talk about sustainable sourcing, right? So again, we leverage a lot on digitalization, AI, and other technology to actually ensure that suppliers ahead and comply to environmental standards. And we also source for, suppliers that is actually able to actually provide us with more sustainable products. So that's another part of it. And then in terms of energy efficiency, water efficiency, power efficiency. There's a lot of programs that we have put in place to actually help do that. For example, water efficiency side, we implement water conservation programs and put in innovative ideas to collect and reuse rainwater. And we also talk about how do we reuse some of the wastewater that's actually discharged out from the manufacturing process, right? Clean it, cleanse it so that we can actually reuse it. So those are some of the things that we are doing. So our objective definitely is, with the recognition from Newsweek, it actually motivate us to actually continue pushing the boundaries because we know we are doing the right thing, right? So ultimately, we aim to achieve carbon neutral by 2045 and further enhance our green manufacturing and supply chain practices.
Wonderful. It's not very often I see organizations focusing on water, for example.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about energy, emissions, but the impact on water is another very big sustainability objective, and glad that you're doing so many things in that space. So, May, you also briefly spoke about, data centers. Now, data centers, we know they generate a lot of greenhouse gas emission.
Yep.
And currently the levels are at par with the global aviation industry, making up to 1 to 2% of total emissions according to the IEA.
Yeah.
And the IT sector's projected energy consumption by 2030 would also account for up to 20% of global demand unless we drastically take action.
Yep.
Jabil has set ambitious sustainability targets, including renewable energy integration that you mentioned, and you know that Gen AI will play a big part of that. How are these goals influencing your IT and AI strategies to support green manufacturing and circular supply chain models? Can you talk a little bit in more details? You have given us some high-level indicators.
Yeah.
But how are you really, bringing the technology and sustainability strategies all together?
Right. Definitely, right? So I think we talk about data center, we know the impact of data center and the energy emission that it has actually transmitted. So actually we are in a very, very aggressive program to actually migrate a lot of our on-prem servers into cloud, right? So we are working extremely close to hyperscaler to actually move our workload to cloud, right? So on one way, I think that is actually reducing our carbon footprint that's directly contributed by Jabil. When we actually move to cloud, we do actually ensure that the cloud hyperscaler are actually putting in place, methods, ways to actually reduce their carbon emissions, right? So that is a lot of program that's undergoing by hyperscaler. So we do actually work with them very closely. So in fact, late last year, we actually shut down our very last data center, right? So in Jabil, we do not have any data center that's actually running right now. We are actually fully dependent on hyperscaler right now. So I think that's a big commitment that we made. So we also talk about other green IT initiatives that we talk about, right? So nonetheless, whenever we talk about AI, especially Gen AI, we know that it is pivotal in optimizing the energy use, right? So how do we actually work on programs that can actually help to actually really optimize that energy usage and improve efficiency across IT operation? I think that's super important, right? So while you actually combine that Gen AI and then redirect the focus and energy into, using Gen AI, I know it's contributing to, the carbon emission to that whole spectrum. But on the other hand, right, through Gen AI, we are actually improving the manufacturing processes. We are actually moving towards more green manufacturing processes. We are moving towards more circular, supply chain models. I think that in the nutshell actually gave me a lot more confidence, right? So for example, some of the green manufacturing initiatives that we talk about, right, is implementation of energy efficient technology and processes to minimize waste and reduce greenhouse gas emission. The adoption of circular economy principles, like what I mentioned before, right? Refurbishing, recycling, reusing the material to actually promote sustainability. And in terms of the circular supply chain model, we talk about AI-driven supply chain platform, right? That can actually enhance efficiency and sustainability on logistic planning, on procurement processes, and actually putting AI to ensure suppliers adhere to their standards. So those are some of the ways that Jabil is actually integrating renewable energy, AI technology into our effort to reduce environmental impact on operation. So we are continuously working on it, right? So it is a continuous improvement process that we do actually want to support the company goal of green manufacturing and circular supply chain. So those are some of the efforts that we are working on right now.
So, May, one of Green Software Foundation's climate commitment emphasizes the importance of abatement, reducing emission at the source as part of the sustainability strategy. Part of this is transitioning to renewable energy sources. Generative AI and machine learning are transforming supply chain management, as you highlighted, but they come with high energy demands. How does Jabil ensure that adoption of AI technologies balances with their focus on renewable energy resources as well as reducing the need for energy itself?
I think that's a great question, right? I think we touched on some of the points earlier. So in specific, Jabil look at it in 6 different ways to actually achieve this balance. First is really integration of renewable energy, right? So we actively integrate renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and water into our operations. So by leveraging all these clean energy sources, we can reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and lower the overall carbon footprint. So that's very key. So that's one on renewable energy. The second one is really on back to AI solution. How do we actually deploy energy efficient AI solution? So within ourselves, we focus on developing and deploying energy efficient AI and machine learning solution. So this really includes what I learned from you, Sanjay, in specific, right? Optimizing algorithm and optimizing the hardware to minimize energy consumption, but yet maintaining high performance. We adopt, low code to actually kind of reduce a lot more of the, consumption that's needed by energy. So in that way, we ensure that energy demand of AI technology are kept in check, right? So that's super important. So that's our second strategy. The third strategy is really talking about smart grid technology. So Jabil employs smart grid technology to manage our variability and intermittency of renewable energy sources. So this technology helps to balance our supply and demand of electricity, ensuring that renewable energy is being efficiently utilized, right, for various systems. So then the fourth thing is really energy storage system. So we also invest in advanced energy storage system, ESS, to store excess renewable energy generated through the peak production time. So all this stored energy can then be used to power our AI algorithm, our AI technology during the periods of high demand, ensuring that we have a more sustainable energy supply. So the fifth strategy that Jabil has deployed is really sustainable manufacturing processes by itself, right? So there's very clear guideline that Jabil actually implements sustainable manufacturing practices in all our facilities. So we use energy efficient equipment. It is very clear in our procurement guideline that that's our first choice, to make sure that we use energy efficient equipment. We reduce waste. We promote the use of renewable resources. So all these are good practices that we have actually put into our manufacturing processes and is ingrained into our manufacturing processes. And last but not least, which I think is super important, is that continuous monitoring and improvement, right? So we continue to monitor our energy consumption, the performance, and the sustainability commitment that we made for 2045. So that keep us in check on making sure that we are always, having this on top of our mind.
Wonderful. I really like the articulation of the 6 points. It's almost like a framework.
Yeah, thank you.
In 2022, according to the World Health Organization, an estimated 62 million tons of electronic waste were produced globally, with less than a quarter being appropriately recycled. Given this significant environmental challenge, is Jabil addressing e-waste management within its organization and supply chain, and how so? Can you describe it a little bit more in details?
Yeah. So we acknowledge that and we are really concerned about it, right? So Jabil is actively addressing that through that significant environmental challenge through a few of the initiatives. Again, the circular economy initiative actually kicked in. So I'm not sure whether you're aware, right? So Jabil did actually went through to actually acquire a company called Retronics. So Retronics actually was acquired with the objective that, hey, we need to advance our circular economy initiative. So Retronics focus on the reclaim, the refurbishment, and the recycling of our electronic components. So that is actually a true circular economy that we actually put it by putting our investment into a company that actually does that, right? So that's one thing that we did. And then really the other one is really the component recovery, right? So implementing advanced processes like laser rebaling for safety extraction of valuable component from printed circuit board and other electronics. So it is a deliberate actions that we actually exploit out the valuable components from the printed circuit boards. So that's one. And then the other one are really the sustainable practices that we talk about, right? Refurbishment, reusability, and then really the reverse supply chain management, efficiently managing the reverse logistic of electronic product to ensure proper recycling. And then desktop as a service is something that I did mention, right? Because honestly, when we talk about desktop as a service, I like the program itself. I'm fully committed and I'm a big sponsor of that program. I do actually see it improve sustainability in a few ways, right? You reduce energy consumption. We actually dictate the kind of desktop that we wanted to make sure that, hey, what we get are energy efficient. We also work on more virtual desktop, right? Instead of all the traditional PCs. And then through virtual desktop, it actually lower energy usage. And it become more efficient, right? So that also lower down the e-waste while we actually go on desktop as a service, right? We actually demand our vendors to actually reduce the need for frequent, hardware upgrades, replacement, and things like that. So by extending the lifespan of the equipment, we actually try to stretch it out a little bit more, right? And then we have better utilization through desktop as a service, optimize it, and then making sure that only people that need it have it, right? So stringent guideline on who can get a high-powered PC. Not everybody can request for it. So there are guidelines, adherence that we actually put in place to actually help to do that.
Wonderful, May. There's so much to learn from this podcast, especially I'm sure many CIOs will appreciate the insights you're sharing. So we have come to the end of this episode of CXO Bytes. Thanks so much for joining us, May. Before we leave, for people who want to find out more about you and your company, where can they do that?
Thank you. So first of all, you can actually find me through the Jabil web, right? So jabil.com, you can see a quick profile of myself under the senior leadership team. You can also see me in the LinkedIn profile.
Well, you have come to the end of our podcast episode. All that's left for me is to say thank you so much, May. That was really great.
Thanks
for your contribution, and we really appreciate you coming on to CXO Bytes.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Sanjay, and thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. That's all for this episode of CXO Bytes. All the resources for this episode are in the show description below, and you can visit podcast.greensoftware.foundation to listen to more episodes of CXO Bytes. See you all in the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Just a reminder to follow CXO Bytes on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. And please do leave a rating and review if you like what we are doing. It helps other people discover the show, and of course, we want more listeners. To find out more about the Green Software Foundation, please visit greensoftware.foundation. Thanks again, and see you in the next episode.